It's been, almost a minute since I've been jumping videos. Um, I've been in the process of writing my book. Beyond the Scriptures is coming soon. We just waiting on the publisher company, waiting on the editors, to handle their thing. And just, waiting for God to work His miracles. Beyond the Scriptures coming soon. I will be releasing videos and little samples of the book because it's very intriguing. It's going to be very controversial. And torture church into torture church most definitely, and towards a lot of historians. So look out for that Beyond the Scripture. And thanks to the people who are helping me promote it and helping me, to stay on track with it. But I do a video in a minute where I talk to you about certain situations. And this is one of my videos I'm going to do tonight. I like to talk about slavery. And I listen to people say, and I even had this on my YouTube page, where I post videos and I had people comment on them, and I accept all kind of criticism. I understand that people had their own understanding. Even Solomon said that the way it may seem right to a man, but ends in death. People have their free will to believe what they believe, and I had no problem with that. Whether you believer or unbeliever, we all see things totally different. But I know I have on my YouTube page, I have talked to people who talk to me and who really tried to throw a book at me, but they couldn't. They talked about the unnatural things, because I posted a video about unnatural things, and I spoke of incest, homosexuality, worshiping foreign gods, and how these things are unnatural. And one person said to me, well, if all this is unnatural, then and God disapproves of such these actions, then why does God allow slavery to happen? And and people have been using this line for the longest, that God approves of slavery. The Bible says that God approves of slavery. The Bible really does not say that God approves of slavery. If you read, and people get this from the book of Leviticus, which is a very heavy, drawn out book of laws that are not to be broken, and it's a very intriguing book to read. And people got the concept that God approves slavery because of that book. God does not approve of slavery. And when we think of slavery, we think of the blacks who was enslaved. We think of Israel, who was enslaved in the beginning of the Bible, in the time of Egyptians. We think of the Jews who were slaves. We think of the Chinese right now who are in slavery because they are slaves because they work for just a little bit. God does not approve slavery in no way, shape, or form. Now, if you read the book of Leviticus, in different Bible translations, the word slave comes up. A slave back in the biblical times was one who could not pay off his debt. Okay? For example, if a guy owed me money in the biblical times and he could not pay off his debt because it was too large for him, he and his family will work for me, or he will work for me for a set period of time until his debt was fully paid off. In the eyes, people use the term slavery because he was a slave to the man. He was that man's servant. See, slavery equals servant, which servant equals employee. He worked to pay off a debt because he could not pay, because he could not pay off, couldn't pay the master off what he owed him. Now, if you read closely and you say that God approves of slavery, if God approves of slavery, why does God say in Leviticus, in the book of Numbers, why does he say such things as, if a master plucked out his servant's eye or his slave's eye, then that master's eye should be plucked out too? Now that's where the term an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth came in at. And that'll be my next video where I talk about the phrases that have been taken out of context. But if God approves of slavery, why would he say, if the master treats a slave wrong, then the master must reap the same type of punishment to balance it out? God does not approve of slavery. He says, if you can't pay a debt off to someone that you owe, work for him. Work it off. Like me, for instance. I have bills that I must pay. I got to pay rent, electric, gas, water, cable, cell phone bill, car insurance. You know, I got to buy my kids' clothes. I got to do all that type of stuff. I got to pay food in my house. Every single month, I can do all this stuff. In order for me to pay off this debt that I have, especially with the bills and stuff, when I get my electric turned on, I run up a bill, and I gotta pay what, $150, for instance. So that's a debt. I have to pay that off in order for my electric to stay off. So I go find a job where this job helps me pay off my debt. You call me a employee, God will call me a servant. And as many people translate the Bible, they use slave. Because I work to pay off a debt. I work for a cause. So I will be considered a slave. Now I don't want to get mixed up. Like I'm not being ignorant towards the slaves who were. Now slavery, the term slave has been twisted because of the blacks and how they was tortured and beaten very bad. That's not slavery. That was inhumane. That was wrong. Completely wrong. That was what not God said should happen. Men are all equal. And our forefathers have made that clear. We are all equal. No man's greater than the next. Because we all have the same features. We all come from the same place. And we all going to return to the same place. So no one is greater. When the Jews was being tortured in the forest around World War II, that's unfair treatment. The Chinese, that's unfair treatment. Human trafficking in the foreign countries and even in our country, that's unfair treatment. God doesn't approve of that. But God approves of a man that cannot pay his debt. He approves of him working to pay off his debt, that he may be worry-free. So all this about slavery and that God approves slavery, and you know, I watched Barack Obama, President Obama, on the video way back in '06 talking about should we go back to the Bible days where God approved of slavery, where He approved of stoning a child, we approved of this and that, you know, and everybody got that thing mixed up. God never approved slavery, but we are slaves. If you're not of Christ, but you are of the world, you are a slave to sin. And that's for another sermon. That's for another teaching video. But that's the only time that God compares slavery. You read the New Testament in the books that Paul wrote, and you read about that. But the term is slavery. God does not approve of slavery. It's inhumane. He approves of those who cannot pay off debt. To pay off debt. Now, if you think I'm lying, look at the parable that's in I believe it's in Matthew. Look in the parable that's in Matthew about the unmerciful servant. He had to pay off a debt of 10,000 talents. And he told the king, listen, I can't pay it off. I don't have it. The king said, well, take him and his wife and his children, throw him in jail until he can pay off his debt. The man begged and said, hey, be patient with me. And the king had compassion on him and said, I forgive your debt. He went out there to go find people that owed him money, and then he found a man that owed him 100 dineros, and he choked him because he owed him money. And the guy said, "Be patient with me," but he threw him in jail. The thing I want you to understand is God does not approve slavery at all. Leviticus and Numbers speaks of servants who cannot pay off the debt that they had. So they worked to pay off their debt.